This video is brought to you by Brilliant. When French President Emmanuel Macron dissolved the National Assembly and called a snap legislative election last week, he sent France's political parties into a scramble to organise, shore up support and form alliances with just a 3-week timetable before the first round of the election. As a result, France has gone through a deeply chaotic couple of days, with betrayals, alliances and battles for party control. So in this video, we're going to explain what's been going on with each of the major political camps, and what it means for the election. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. As a quick heads up, if you want to know more about the background to these elections and why Macron called them, then check out our recent TLDR EU video on the subject. Anyway, the most dramatic events have arguably been those involving the Republicans. For context, the Republicans used to be France's mainstream centre-right party, being the party of Presidents Chirac and Sarkozy, drawing on the legacy of Charles de Gaulle. Despite having been one of France's two major parties, since the mid-2010s, the Republicans have been squeezed between Emmanuel Macron's centrist alliance on one side, while being eclipsed on the other by Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally, which has become France's primary right-wing force. As such, the Republicans have struggled to find their place, and it looks like this snap election is only accelerating their downfall. Republican Party President Eric Ciotti quickly announced that he was seeking an electoral alliance with National Rally, dramatically breaking the cordon sanitaire that had so far prevented other parties from working with Le Pen. This unilateral decision quickly sparked outrage in the Republican Party, with its heavyweights denouncing Ciotti and demanding his resignation. The party's executive planned to meet on Wednesday afternoon in order to remove him, but Ciotti locked himself inside party headquarters to prevent the meeting, sparking a hunt for the spare keys. Nevertheless, the executive committee met elsewhere and unanimously voted to expel him. Ciotti, though, declared the meeting to be against the party's rules and asserted that he was still its president, ultimately showing up to his former office on Thursday and insisting that he was continuing the job. At one point, the party's Twitter and Facebook accounts even fell into the hands of the rival factions, leading to two opposing statements being published on social media. Anyway, it's not exactly clear where things go from here, but Ciotti is seeking to take the case to court. Elsewhere on the right, there were tumultuous scenes between National Rally and Reconquest, a smaller far-right party led by Eric Zemmour, a well-known media personality with several hate speech convictions. Marion Maréchal, who is Marine Le Pen's niece but defected from National Rally and became vice president of Reconquest, had reached out to National Rally to try and secure an electoral alliance, but this was rejected as National Rally wanted no association with Zemmour. Maréchal and 3 other newly elected Reconquest MEPs then split with Zemmour and publicly called for voters to support candidates endorsed by National Rally, prompting Zemmour, citing a record betrayal, to expel her and the others from his party, leaving him with just a single member of the European Parliament, having had 5 elected just a few days prior. Meanwhile, perhaps unusually, things seem to be more united on the left. Soon after the snap election was called, the French left, having been racked by divisions over the years, moved quickly to agree in principle to an electoral alliance called the Popular Front, comprising the 4 main left-of-centre parties: France Unbowed, the Communist Party, the Socialist Party and the Greens, as well as some other smaller parties. Now, these main left-wing parties, which range from the far left to centre-left, had united ahead of the last legislative elections in 2022 in an alliance called NUPES. NUPES had effectively been led by Jean-Luc Mélenchon and his France Unbound party, due to Mélenchon's strong performance in the first round of the 2022 presidential election. But NUPES was always riven with tensions, in particular between the far-left firebrand Mélenchon and the centre-left elements like the Socialist Party, previously one of France's 2 main parties alongside the Republicans. Anyway, by the end of last year, NUPES had basically collapsed and the parties ran separate and often hostile campaigns for the recent European elections. But Macron's sudden calling of a snap legislative election has brought the left back together, although tensions remain. Tense negotiations on Thursday were briefly suspended before being resumed later in the day. For context, Mélenchon's France Unbowed is the largest group in the alliance, but a recent resurgence of the Socialist Party, which emerged as the strongest left-of-centre group at the European elections, has given the centre-left more weight in the negotiations. Anyway, by the end of Thursday, the parties of the Popular Front announced that they had reached an agreement, including on the distribution of seats, a single list of candidates for the election, as well as a governing programme. At time of writing, we don't know the programme details, though they're expected to be unveiled at some point on Friday. Too late to make it into this video. There's also one key unanswered question. Who will lead the Popular Front in this election and be the alliance's candidate for Prime Minister? Given the personality clashes and animosity between some of the member parties, it may prove difficult to agree on a name. So, moving on, what about President Macron's own Ensemble alliance? Well, Macron gave a big press conference on Wednesday, the first of a series of interventions he plans to make during the campaign. From the press conference, it was clear the kind of campaign his alliance was running, with the key argument being that the centre must hold firm against what he called the extremes on the left and right. He decried the, quote, devil's pact that Republican ex-leader Ciotti had sought with National Rally, as well as condemning the centre-left's alliance with Mélenchon's party, which he accused of anti-Semitism and anti-parliamentarianism. The problem for Macron, though, is that the handful of polls carried out since he called the snap election show his alliance in a very weak position. In all of them, National Rally have been first, averaging 33%, while the left-wing alliance is in second, averaging 24.6%. Meanwhile, Macron's Ensemble alliance sits a fairly distant third in all polls so far, averaging around 18.4%. So, with nearly 2 weeks to go until the first round of the legislative elections, how is Macron's gamble looking? Well, if he'd hoped that the surprise dissolution would enable his alliance to capitalise on a divided left, then he was wrong, as it had instead prompted a left-wing alliance that's now polling ahead of its own. Likely also bad news for Macron is the reapproachment between Marine Le Pen and her niece Marion Maréchal, as it coalesces far-right support around National Rally. However, Macron's camp might be feeling happy about the implosion of the Republicans, as depending on how that situation works out, it could see disaffected Republican voters switch to supporting the president's alliance. Ultimately, while 2 weeks might not seem like much time until the first round, given the major political realignment that's happened in just the first few days of the campaign, it seems like anything could happen by election day. Now, understanding exactly what has or is going to happen here can be a little tricky, requiring you to evaluate lots of information from different, often partial sources. It would be sensible then to begin improving your critical thinking skills so that you can keep sharp and better understand what's going on. And well, our sponsor Brilliant.org can help you do just that. Brilliant is the online learning platform that's designed specifically to teach you everything from maths, data analysis, programming, and AI from the ground up. You don't need a fancy degree or to have dedicated hundreds of hours to studying any of these. All you need is a device with an internet connection and a few spare minutes a day. And with your spare few minutes, you'll learn by actually doing, with Brilliant providing hands-on lessons that let you play around with concepts, a method that has been shown to be 6 times more effective than just watching lectures. What makes this even better is that this content is created by an award-winning team of teachers, researchers, and professionals from MIT, Caltech, Duke, Microsoft, and more. You can try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days. Just click on the link in the description. That way, you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription.